You are watching Bygone Treasures, your source for everything history and geopolitics, now in session. Great Britain was inhabited by the Anglo-Saxons from the 5th centuries. Their membership included descendants of Germanic communities who migrated to the island from continental Europe, as well as indigenous British groups that incorporated certain elements of Anglo-Saxon culture and language. The Anglo-Saxon period is the period of British history that spans approximately 450 CE to 1066 CE, following the initial settlement and culminating in the Norman conquest. The Anglo-Saxon period was characterized by the establishment of an English nation which incorporated numerous elements that are still in use today, such as regional governance through shires and hundreds. Christianity was re-established during this period and literature and language flourished. Additionally, charters and legislation were implemented. The Anglo-Saxons' history is the narrative of a cultural identity. It was essential to the establishment of numerous kingdoms and emerged from diverse groups in conjunction with the people's adoption of Christianity. This identity endured and it continued to dominate until the Norman conquest, despite the extended Danish invasions and occupancy of eastern England. The period of medieval Britain that commences with the cessation of Roman rule is referred to as the early Anglo-Saxon period. By the year 400, southern Britain below Hadrian's Wall was a peripheral region of the Western Roman Empire. It had been sporadically lost to rebellion or invasion, but it had always gradually recovered. It is generally accepted that Britain transitioned from direct imperial control to a phase known as sub-Roman around 410. Four structures contributed to the development of Anglo-Saxon society in the second half of the 6th century: the position and freedoms of the coal peasants, the coalescence of smaller tribal areas into larger kingdoms, the elite's transition from warriors to kings, and the development of Irish monasticism under Finian. In 565, Columba, a monk from Ireland who had studied at the monastic school of Moville under St. Finian, arrived at Iona as a self-imposed exile. It would expand into an unusually extensive spiritual empire that stretched from western Scotland deep to the southwest into the heart of Ireland, and to the southeast it reached down throughout northern Britain through the influence of its sister monastery Lindisfarne, as Peter Brown has described the influence of the monastery of Iona. Michael Drought refers to this period as the Golden Age, during which classical knowledge experienced a renaissance and learning flourished. The political landscape of lowland Britain had evolved by 660 as smaller territories consolidated into kingdoms. Subsequently, larger kingdoms began to dominate the smaller kingdoms. The formation of kingdoms which were characterized by the recognition of a specific monarch as an overlord emerged from a preliminary informal framework. Simon Keynes posits that the 8th, 9th centuries were a period of economic and social prosperity that established stability in both the lower and upper reaches of the Thames. Nevertheless, the Kingdom of Mercia, a political entity that grew in influence and power between the Humber and Thames, garnered attention in the east. The 9th century witnessed the emergence of Wessex, which was established by King Egbert in the first quarter of the century, and culminated in the accomplishments of King Alfred the Great in its final decades. Alfred emerged as the dominant ruler of England after effectively defending his kingdom against the Viking attempt at conquest. He was the first monarch of the West Saxons to refer to himself as King of the Anglo-Saxons. Alfred was known for his learned and merciful nature, as well as his gracious and level-headed demeanour. He promoted education and enhanced the quality of life of his people by enhancing the legal and military structures of his kingdom. The West Saxon kings gradually expanded their authority over Mercia, the southern Danelaw, and Northumbria throughout the 10th century. This created a false sense of political unity among peoples who, despite this, continued to recognise their unique customs and histories. The monarchy's prestige and pretensions were bolstered, the institutions of government were fortified, and monarchs and their agents endeavoured to establish social order through a variety of means. In the 11th century, this society would experience 3 invasions, the third of which was effectively led by William of Normandy in 1066, resulting in the transfer of political authority to the Normans. The material culture of buildings, dress styles, illuminated texts and grave products is indicative of the visible Anglo-Saxon culture. Strong tribal and lordship connections are concealed beneath the symbolic nature of these cultural emblems. The elite proclaimed themselves monarchs, constructed burst fortifications or fortified settlements, and defined their roles and populations in biblical terms. Helena Hamerow has noted that local and extended kin groups remained the essential unit of production throughout the Anglo-Saxon period. According to a March 2015 study, the genetic composition of British populations today demonstrates the divisions of the tribal political entities of the early Anglo-Saxon period, indicating that the effects of this period continue to be felt in the 21st century. The bonds of loyalty to a lord were based on his person rather than his position. There was no genuine notion of patriotism or loyalty to a cause. This explains the rapid ebb and flow of dynasties. The strength of a kingdom was contingent upon its leader king. There was no underlying administration or bureaucracy to sustain any gains beyond the tenure of a leader. King Alfred played a particularly significant role in the development and preservation of the Anglo-Saxon culture. One of the primary themes of the Middle Saxon period is the process by which the main kingdoms expanded by absorbing smaller principalities, as well as the character that their kingdoms acquired as a result. A good monarch was a generous ruler who secured the support necessary to maintain his dominance over other kingdoms through his wealth. These observations regarding the resources that each monarch required were provided by monarch Alfred's digressions in his translation of Boethius's Consolation of Philosophy. In the case of the monarch, the resources and tools necessary to rule are the full manning of his land, which includes praying, fighting, and working men. You are also aware that no king can publicly demonstrate his abilities without these instruments. Another aspect of his resources is the necessity of providing support for his tools, which are the three classes of males. Consequently, these are how they are sustained. Land for subsistence, gifts, weapons, food, ale, apparel, and any other necessities that each of the three classes of men requires. The first category of King Alfred's threefold Anglo-Saxon society consists of praying men who are individuals who dedicate themselves to prayer. In the 5th and 6th centuries, the Anglo-Saxons' religious history was dominated by pagan religious beliefs with a Scando-Germanic heritage. Even though Christianity reigned supreme, pagan symbolism is present in nearly every poem from before the Norman conquest, regardless of its Christian content. However, the incorporation of pagan beliefs into the new faith extends beyond the literary sources. Anglo-Saxon England devised methods to integrate the church's religion with the pre-existing northern customs and practices. Therefore, the Anglo-Saxons' conversion was not merely a transition from one practice to another, it was the creation of something new from their old inheritance as well as their new beliefs and knowledge. Not only the church but also monasticism was the focal point of Anglo-Saxon Christian existence. The function of churchmen was comparable to that of combatants engaged in heavenly combat. Fighting is the second component of Alfred's society. The Anglo-Saxon society is significantly influenced by the subject of war, which is peculiarly overlooked. Working males comprise the third component of Alfred's society. Helena Hamerow proposed that the dominant paradigm of working life and settlement, particularly during the early period, was one of shifting settlement and the establishment of tribal kinship. The Mid-Saxon period was characterized by diversification, the establishment of enclosures, the initiation of the toft system, the closer management of livestock, the gradual dissemination of the moldboard plough, informally regular plots, and greater permanence. Subsequently, further settlement consolidation occurred, foreshadowing the villages that would emerge after the conquest. In the later periods, there was a significant increase in the number of service features such as stables, mills, and latrines, particularly on high-status sites. Helena Hamerow posited that local and extended kin groups remained the essential unit of production during the Anglo-Saxon period. This has been Bygone Treasures. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe for more updates, and drop a comment with your thoughts below. We'd love to hear from you.